Ghana is spearheading a bold initiative to tackle global plastic pollution by proposing a global pollution levy on polymer production. An estimated 86% of Ghana's waste plastic load is disposed of in not a good way, resulting in plastic clogging upstream drain waters, rivers and streams, and causing floods like the infamous June 3rd disaster. The innovative approach, which seeks to hold manufacturers accountable for the waste generated by their product, is currently being advocated by experts from the Ministry of Environment, Science, Technology and Innovation at the ongoing Intergovernmental Negotiation Conference on Plastic Pollution, including the marine sector in Ottawa, Canada, convened by the United Nations Environment Programme. There is more in this report.
Plastic waste is a major problem in Ghana, with blocked drainage systems leading to flooding. According to the United Nations Environment Programme, an estimated 86% of Ghana's waste plastic load is improperly disposed of, resulting in plastics clogging up stormwater drains, rivers and streams and more. But how can this change for the country to benefit from plastics? The director for the Institute of Applied Sciences and Technology at the University of Ghana, Professor David Dodu Ahin, says more people have to be trained on how to turn the plastics into profitable ventures.
We are having a partnership with the Europe Recyclers through a project by the European Union called Horizon 2020. And the partners are from Finland, Netherlands, we have Belgium, and industry players in Europe who are into the European recycling. Realize that this is an international problem. The plastic waste is not only in Ghana. We also have similar situations across the world. The bigger part is it's entering into our oceans, and sometimes it enters into the food chain. Our fisher folks will go to fishing, and sometimes the net, instead of getting fish, they are getting a big catch of plastics. So what is our contribution to this? Our contribution is finding lasting solutions to this in another way and incentivizing the people to collect these plastics, because when you collect the plastics and you are able to get some money out of it, what we call the pickers, they get it, we weigh, then we get money out of it. We will encourage people to do that.
Professor of Materials and Chemistry at the University of Eastern Finland, Jekko J. Saranin, stressed the need for collaboration between Ghana and other countries in addressing plastic waste. He said the dual nature of plastic as both useful and environmentally hazardous calls for an urgent need to mitigate its harmful impact.
Our mission here in Ghana is to strengthen the collaboration between our university and the University of Ghana, and then also learn from each side what are the best ways to treat plastics. I think it's a valuable material to be reused in similar applications, so we shouldn't be wasting precious materials, and also we shouldn't be doing that for the environment. Plastics is a marvelous material. The main reason why plastics are used so widely is their durability, and that's the reason that they are so good in the applications in which we use them. For example, if you have an artificial hip joint, then the bowl will be made from plastic, and it functions really well. But at the other side of the coin is that we have the durability is a problem if the plastic ends up in environment, in the place where it should not be, for example in the oceans. So it's people should not be throwing plastics away in the environment, but it should be collected and reused to guarantee a better future for all of us.
Waste Segregation Officer at Jekora Ventures, Budu Kumoji, called on the government to make waste sorted a policy for waste management companies.
So when you segregate your waste at source, you are able to add more value to the materials. So waste, or there's a saying by Zimmerman that says resources are not, they become. So what you declare waste is what is waste. So if you don't declare anything waste, it is not waste. So we are encouraging that plastic materials, especially for purposes of this program, plastic materials should be sorted at source. at the point of generation, do not lump it up with all other waste materials. Keep it separately. One important thing as well is there's no policy that says that people should segregate their waste. So even in some areas where we do not operate, you get individuals who have probably lived outside the country and are used to such systems. They segregate their waste, but the waste management company that is accredited to service them does not have these services. So they separate it, but then when the company comes to collect, they lump everything up, and that's a waste of effort. So over time, they stop it altogether. So we are suggesting or recommending that a policy should be made such that every waste management company would use this approach, and it will go a long way to help us as a nation.
So there's an international conference ongoing, and Samuel Mbura joins me live from Canada, where he's attending the 4th session of the UNEP Intergovernmental Negotiation Conference on Plastic Pollution. Mbura, you're welcome to the post. So tell me more about this conference on plastic pollution.
So every member state of the United Nations has a representative here in Canada for this all-important INC4. They've had previous sessions starting from Uruguay to Kenya and Paris, and this is the 4th session. The main reason for this, world delegation and in the deliberation has to do with the fact that they are looking at a legally binding document on the usage and the disposal as well as management of plastic around the world. We know that per the estimate from the UN environmental program, over 80% of plastic generated annually goes directly into the water bodies, exposing human lives and aquatic lives to danger. It is on the back of this that the United Nations environmental program is bringing all these stakeholders together to look at the legally binding document so that at least they'll be able to come out with a treaty so that every member state would sign on to it. So in this case, they are looking at the entire life cycle of plastic, right from the extraction and making them monomers to polymerizing the materials, which the end product will be plastic and how it will be managed. We know the situation in Ghana is quite damning, that we know the infamous June 3 disaster, according to research, was linked to the choked drains of the Odor River and other water bodies in the country or in the national capital. That led to that awkward scene that we witnessed some time ago, the flooding and other issues as well. So basically, this conference looks at a global instrument that is legally binding, or that will be legally binding on all member states of the United Nations to sign to as a treaty, like other treaties that have been signed on other aspects of managing the environment as well as the economy and other thematic areas. So as we speak, this is the day 3 of the negotiation, and I must say that so far every country has come with its proposal. Ghana is here with a proposal, and the proposal is quite simple. They are requesting or demanding and pushing forward a levy on plastic. And this levy will start from the upstream. The upstream is where they do the production, conversion, and extraction of the raw materials of plastic is where they are asking for the levy to start. So that at least, aside the fact that it will help in reducing the plastic situation across the world, it will also generate funds for each member state to access and then manage plastics across the globe. So at the moment, there have been sessions upon sessions, but it is not wholly accepted yet. Within the African bloc, there are convergence and divergence. People are having divergent views about it. Other countries are also supporting. For instance, if you look at Egypt and some countries in North Africa and South Africa, as well as Uganda, they are kicking against it because they want a clear definition of the whole life cycle of plastic, because these are countries that produce heavily plastic material. So they are looking at the economic bit of it. So if you are saying that let's stop plastic or eradicate plastic, entirely, what becomes of such economy? So at the moment, the Ghanaian delegation is trying to see how they can court support from some of the African countries that are against it. So they will have a unanimous view so that they can present before the negotiation, so that at the end, this will be the stand of Africa going forward into the global negotiation on this INC4.
Right. So, Mbura, I just want to find out the the strategy the international body is seeking to adopt so that they can have this decision adopted by the member countries, knowing very well that every country has its own sovereign laws and wills, and adaptation now becomes an issue. What is the strategy that they are adopting or they are working towards to get everybody on board so that this matter is dealt with?
Well, so Elton, that is why they are here. They need to get to a consensus. They have a team of legal brains across the world who are looking critically at this thing. So they are looking at it comprehensively, how they can have that legally binding. And that's why the emphasis is on the international legally binding documents. We've had previous treaties signed on other thematic areas in which we can make reference to. So this one is not a departure from the previous treaties that have been signed in other thematic areas. So they are looking at how they can bring all the member countries or states together so that they'll look at their local laws and feature that into the international perspective. Then they can have this internationally legally binding document. So they don't want to impose it, but to get consensus, get to a consensus or a win-win situation on how this can be accepted wholly as a global document, and each member country will sign to this treaty without any resistance.
And you will say that there is overwhelming support for the proposal?
Yes, I must say, but just a few countries within the African bloc. I mentioned of the North Africa. We have some kind like Algeria is strongly against it. Uganda is also against it. South Africa is against it.
And their reasons are what?
Yeah, so I indicated that the reason for they kicking against it is because they have factories who produce plastics in their economy. So it's basically economic reason they are kicking against it. So they are looking at the sustainable alternative in case the UN or the proposal by Ghana comes into being. So that their factories or manufacturing companies there will not cripple, in which at the end their companies or their economy would be affected. So their reason is basically economic. But I must say it's just a minority of them. But a lot of people or other countries are strongly in support of Ghana, but they want clarity as well. So from here, they'll move it to the next stage where other countries in Europe, Asia, and all that also share their thoughts about this proposal as well.
And briefly, Ghana's position is to impose levy on the manufacturing of plastic. Is that Ghana's proposal right now?
So Ghana's proposal is a levy, a plastic pollution levy on polymers. So if you say polymer, the raw material up from the upstream. So the raw material which they use to produce plastic is where they are starting from. So it trickles down from upstream to downstream.
And when is the conference ending?
So the conference is scheduled to end on the 29th of this month of April. And next, in November, they will have the INC 5 where they will have the document being ratified after a consensus is built for all member stations to sign to this treaty.
All right, thank you very much, and take care of yourself in Canada. Samuel Mbura is a multimedia journalist. Now, let me bring in the programs manager of Green Africa Youth Organization, and they also have some interest on this matter. Desmond Alonia. Mr. Alonia, you're welcome to the Pulse on Joy News.
Thank you very much for having me.
Right, so from your perspective as an industry player, what do you make of this plastic pollution fee on polymer production that's been proposed by the Ghanaian delegation at this ongoing conference?
Yeah, I think that that's a very bold step and a very good one, because my organization have been looking at the business aspect of plastics in the country. And at the moment, in Accra alone, we're collecting about 12 tons of plastics every month. And that's a huge amount of plastics. But look at the situation, it's still looking the same way. And we're looking at how do you make money? How do you create more jobs, employ more and more young people, especially, and women who are in the forefront of picking waste, reclaiming and recovery. And how do you still make money when you recycle these things after paying at every stage? So levying these companies, levying the importers, levying those who manufacture will help us to be able to establish material recovery facilities or buyback centers so that we can have easy access to these things in larger volumes.
But you do understand me, or you do appreciate the fact that this discussion didn't start today. We've been on a discussion for years, 10, 20 years. And in all these years that we've had this discussion, we've looked at the impact of plastic on the environment, yet we have failed to come to a decision on the way forward once and for all. Is it lack of political will or economic reasons that is making it so difficult to come to a decision as to the way forward in dealing with plastics in the country?
Yeah, thank you. I would say it is a mixture of both, because the political will is number one. You need a nation, a government, and regulatory bodies that are able to stamp their feet on the ground and say that, hey, we don't want these problematic plastics, for example, the ones that do not have value for recycling companies in our country, because locally we cannot make business out of it. And then at the same time, you also need some sort of international instrument, for example, what they are negotiating, that you can always reference. Because without some reference point, it becomes difficult for a country, a single country, to be able to stand up with the industry. Mind you, the industry players are also really influential in political decision-making processes. So both sides plays a major role in the success of this.
And yesterday, for example, one of my colleagues, Masol Agbagba, did a story on field exhibition here in the Greater Accra region where he visited a coastal community. Now, the fisher folks are complaining that now when they go to the sea, they catch more plastic than fish. So their economic gains is dwindling. But beyond the fact that they face economic consequences, the danger to the environment and the Ghanaian, if this matter is not dealt with, going for, let's say, for the next 5 or 10 years, what danger are we likely to be in if we don't take a decisive decision today?
Yeah, thank you so much. So you realize that we have a very long stretch coast, all the way from Keita, we have the coast to Accra, and then to the central region, we have a long coast. Now, what's happening is that the pileup is going to support in what we are recording in the country in terms of the flooding and urban heat waves that we are recording because of extreme temperatures. Now, the ocean might be seen as a separated entity, but every interaction that you have on the ocean is not only preventing you to have fishes, like you are saying, but it's also now having a compounding impact on the heat that we are recording, because when we actually have those heavy flooding, it doesn't end on bringing on board some of these things into the community, but it comes along with a lot of pathogens. It comes along with also a lot of disease-causing mechanisms, organisms that are going to dwindle the health of your population. Beyond that, we also now have, to the extreme of it, some of these plastics going all the way to the upper regions where farming is the bedrock. And so imagine that you are not able to actually have your food as quality as it is. In Kenya, for example, they are complaining of having particles of plastics in tea. So you can imagine what we will be complaining of, maize, we will be complaining of cassava and yam and what have you. And that has a direct impact on food security.
Let me ask a final question. Beyond the proposed imposition of levy on the polymer, what other recommendation would you put forth?
I would say that we need to always look at it from the business perspective. Plastics is here, and we might not be able to kill the industry, but we need to look at what is problematic and what is not problematic. What is the value of the plastic material? And then rate it according to the value chain. If you are employing someone at the local level who is picking these things from home to home, what is the person making? And is that worth it? If it is not worth it, then we kill that particular material, because there are so many varieties of plastics in the system. And if we look at it from the business perspective, we would be able to eliminate the ones that are actually causing the problems, because it is when you don't want it that it mostly end up on the street. And then the ones that are having financial value, we actually also set up systems by as government and as municipalities for people to easily return these bottles, return these sachets, and make money out of that.
All right. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon as we talk about plastic and the ongoing international conference to try and find a solution to the plastic menace in the country.